y'all, it's Jess. Welcome back to Roots and Refuge Farm. I'm in my greenhouse currently, obviously, and today I just want to talk with you guys a little bit about gardening. This is actually a response video. I don't know that I've ever done a video in response to someone else's video before, but this morning I woke up and went about my day. I usually don't watch much YouTube until kind of later on in the morning after I've got some stuff done. And when I got on YouTube to check everything out, a video popped up just at the top of the list, and it was MIGardener's video that he put out yesterday. It's just a few minutes after he'd published it, about why he gardens. And immediately it just kind of like caught my attention because I've actually not heard Luke talk a whole lot about his journey into gardening. I knew he'd had kind of some experience with it as a younger man, but I've kind of been curious about what led him to that. He's a young guy and is obviously really passionate about gardening, and so I clicked immediately and was not actually prepared at all for the story that was about to come out, which was really a raw and transparent account of his life growing up and having been really bullied. And he was sharing about basically his journey into gardening. I won't go into the whole thing, I'll just link the video so you guys can check it out. But it got my wheels turning about why I garden. Now, it was one of those kind of funny things that, like, where the details kind of line up, but I actually ordered seeds. I know, it's ridiculous. I have more seeds than I can plant in my lifetime. I've just given away like half of my seed collection. But there was a seed, one particular kind that I really, really wanted to grow this year. And actually the package with this particular seed had arrived, and I hadn't opened it yet. So I watched the video about why Luke from MIGardener gardens, and then I opened the package and got this tomato seed. It's called Orange Rousselini. I bought it from MIGardener and it had just arrived in the mail the day before. Now I have like, a ridiculous amount of tomatoes started out here. I think 80 something varieties, something like 1,600 plants. I'll be selling a lot of these as starts, but still, like, way more tomatoes than I could possibly need. So why in the world would I buy another pack of seeds when I have more seeds than I could possibly grow to start one more variety of tomatoes when I've already got all these going? So I wanted to tell you guys the story about this particular tomato and talk to you about why I garden. And I wanted to encourage you guys to share your journey as well. I did not grow up on a farm, and I had this dream of wanting to have a farm, a hobby farm essentially, from when I was really, really young. But honestly, it was because I liked animals. I just absolutely loved animals of all sorts and wanted to have all of them. Gardening and growing food in that sense was really kind of like a secondary thing for me. It kind of came as like a relevant motivator when my second son was born with some food allergies, and in nursing him I had to cut a lot of stuff out of my diet, which led to reading a lot of labels. And in that, kind of had my eyes open for the first time to how messed up a lot of the stuff that we were eating was. And at the time, I mean, I was young, I was in my early 20s, and so I would say at that point, that lifelong dream of having the red barn and the animals and, the novel idea of a garden, but not really that wasn't really the main motivator. That became a lot larger of a motivator at that point. My mom was a gardener, but she pretty much grew ornamentals. She loved plants. So I grew up in a house full of plants, with a yard full of plants, but we actually didn't grow a lot of food. We lived on a really shady lot, and so that just wasn't a big part of my upbringing. I have always been the kind of person to get kind of obsessed with things. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, whenever I get into something, I want to know all about it. I want to research every dusty corner of the thing and find out all the information that there is to learn. And so when I got into gardening, I was very drawn to the beauty aspect. I was drawn to the heirlooms, I was drawn to the stories, and for so long I had been just so fixated on a farm for the animals. And I guess at that point it kind of all came together for me. The way I had always loved color and beauty and stories, and that desire for real food that had come in raising a family, and that lifelong dream of the hobby farm. I don't know, there was just this like moment of collision of all of those things in the garden where I found this passion that I didn't know that I would have. But at that time, I didn't have anybody that was really into that. I didn't have anybody that I could just start talking about heirloom tomatoes to. Most people, it wasn't that interesting. So for me, the first couple of years of really being into heirlooms and like falling in love with the idea of growing like rare and beautiful things and organic gardening, I didn't have a community for that. The gardeners that I did know locally were pretty strictly, you know, going and picking up their plants at the local box store every spring. There was no community for me. And so the first few years of getting into heirlooms and organic gardening, kind of the path that I am walking on now, it was pretty lonely. And you know, I don't know that I had really realized how important it was to me yet at that time, but I remember wishing somebody got it, like that I could like gush about these things and talk about these things and be excited about them, and that somebody would also be as excited about them. Now fast forward a little bit, and I guess about a few years ago I kind of started to find a homesteading community on Instagram and sharing my life there. I'll never forget whenever I first started sharing pictures of my chickens about 4.5, 5 years ago, and sharing what I was doing. And I didn't know what hashtags were for. I didn't understand that there was a community. I was just sharing pictures of my chickens because I was excited to have them, and felt like, okay, I'm sharing these with people that know me. And I really remember the point of realizing that somebody that I did not know in real life had followed my Instagram account in order to like see the pictures of my chickens. And I was like, that's weird, you know, like I just didn't understand at that time. And that kind of opened the door into this community. And so I started to connect with other like-minded people and get more and more into this hobby farm community and homesteading community. And shortly after that, I ended up finding some YouTube videos and basically watching other people on YouTube who were doing what I was doing. And I think it was probably 2 or 3 years ago that I first came across a video of Luke's. And in this video, he was talking about this tomato, this orange Rossellini tomato that someone had sent him seeds for. And I watched this video of this guy that I didn't know at all, and I had not watched before. Maybe I had come across him like in an informational sense, but I'd never like, at that point, like, you gotta understand, like, YouTube and all of the things, the blogs that I would read, these were like information sources. Like, I never at that point got invested in the people behind the information. I just, you know, I would go for a reference. And I remember in that moment, like, watching Luke talk about this tomato. And he was so pumped about this tomato. He was so excited. And I was really validated. And it was like I saw somebody else getting stupid excited over a tomato. And I was like, yes, like there are other people out there. Then last summer, gearing up, doing our YouTube channel, just getting into it, I did a garden tour. Now, I had worn out the little clips I had of my own garden from the year before. All throughout the winter, I watched them over and over, missing the garden. And so I had in my mind, I'm gonna do a garden tour for myself. I'm gonna film this, I'm gonna do this, and of course at the time, all I had ever heard was don't make your YouTube videos over 10 or 15 minutes, nobody will watch them. In this garden tour, because my garden is really large, ends up being 40 minutes long. I was certain nobody would watch it. I uploaded it anyway, and it quickly became like my most popular video at the time. Everybody gave a resounding yes, more please, and I started weekly garden tours. If you had asked me this time last year, why do you garden? I would have told you, well, I grew up around growing things. It was natural to me. I wanted to grow my own food. I recognized the brokenness of our food system. And all those things would be true, and they still are true. And truly, the reason why I garden is because I want to grow food for my family. And it is very therapeutic. If you've ever spent much time in a garden, you understand how therapeutic it is. My faith is so integrally involved in why I garden. Because for me, being elbows deep in a process that honestly works with me and works in spite of me, it's just such a faith builder to me. All of those things are true, but the question of why do you garden has just been like rolling over my mind all day, and it kind of evolved into the question of why do I garden the way that I do. And Luke kind of touched on this in his video about gardening organically and just being in tune with it. And for me, I'm sitting in this greenhouse full of tomato plants of all different kinds, and there's still room for this one more. It's okay, and it's worth it to get like incredible joy out of little things. And I could grow all of the same kind of tomato and feed my family and experience the therapy of gardening. I could, you know, I wouldn't have to have the diversity in my garden. I wouldn't have to have the size of my garden, honestly. I mean, like, I could functionally probably grow more food in less size if I was really focusing on what produced. However, I love the garden. I mean, just in a way that I don't even know that I really have words for it. And I know you guys know this about me. I know you've seen it on me and you're like, oh my gosh, you are so excited about the garden. And I am. Now, I sell plant starts. I used to sell plant starts whenever I didn't know anybody that cared about the varieties. And people would come into my greenhouse and I would have 30 or 40 varieties of tomatoes. And I would just start to tell them what they all were, because I know all their stories, because I'm excited about it, because I love it, because it's important to me. And I would literally watch people's like eyes get as big as saucers and they would glaze over. And sweet Maya, bless him, would put his hand on my shoulder and just be like, honey, like narrow it down for them. You're overwhelming them. And I was overwhelming them, because they were literally like, you know, like a small one and like a red one. That's what they were looking for. And I'm here telling them how this seed was developed in the late 1800s and blah, 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 blah. And they, truly, a lot of people are not looking for that. But through YouTube and through the gardening community, I found this tribe of people that actually care about those things. And it is the most validating thing in the world whenever you see somebody getting excited about a tomato for the first time. Whenever you start to share what you're doing and other people like celebrate it, and you're not used to that. So really, like, the question of why do I garden? There are so many reasons, but I truly feel like the bottom line, why do I garden? Because it has wildly improved the quality of my life. Health-wise, certainly, to be in touch with my food, to be eating food that was produced in my yard, that wasn't shipped, that doesn't have preservatives, that isn't grown with chemicals. Obviously, the health of myself, my family, are much improved for that. Health-wise, because I'm out working hard. I'm actually using my body. I'm using my muscles. I'm, you know, getting the vitamins of the sun and spending time outside where I'm acclimated to heat. Like, all of those things. Like, yes, there are so many health benefits in the garden, but the place in my heart that experiences peace and joy in that place, I have not found anything else in my life that quite touch that human need to just be in the presence of growing things. And I don't know, I don't know even why I felt so compelled to make this video and to share this. Just listening, I guess just listening to Luke talk about that and knowing how sincere his heart in it, it really kind of struck that in me. And I guess I wanted to share that with you guys. I wanted to maybe strike that thing in your heart that would say, why am I doing this? And maybe realize what a huge blessing it's been and what an incredible gift it is. And if you're on the fence about gardening and you're just kind of like, I don't know, it's gonna be a lot of work. Yeah, it is. It's a lot of work. For me, growing all the incredible varieties and the things that I would otherwise never get to experience, it makes the work worth it for me. It would be a lot easier for me to throw in the towel if what I was growing in my garden looked just like what I could get at the grocery store. All of this, these varieties, these things that I would otherwise never get to taste, that's a huge motivator for me. And in that, I've found such an incredible joy. So I do want to encourage you right now. I know it's, it's spring. It's time to be making plans if you're planning on putting a garden in. And if you're in an apartment, grow something on your patio. If you're in a rental house, there are containers that you can do. You can do raised bed gardening. There are so many different things that you can do, but I want to encourage you to give it a shot. And don't go into it completely utilitarian, because then if you fail and you don't get the harvest you'd hope for, you might give up. But if you go into it with just the expectancy to learn something about yourself and the expectancy to find joy, and you just awe and wonder at the process, it's just incredible to me that a tiny seed can turn into a plant that can turn into a much larger plant, that can bear fruit, that can feed us. It's full of seeds. It's just an incredible process if we will take the time and make the intention of just being in wonder over it. And I really truly believe that a garden can just change your life. Just no matter where you are, I do believe that a garden can change your life. So I don't know, maybe that's just me being the romantic that I am. Maybe it's just one of those things. I don't know. It's just seeing that video the day after I got these seeds, which was just such a thing. Like when I stopped and I got the seed in and I just looked at it and I was like, man, I remember the moment that I felt validated in my excitement for this. And I just keep finding it. Just sharing with all of you guys all of this and the joy that it brings me. And then this joy bounces off of you and back onto me. And we're just sharing it so good. So I just wanted to throw a little joy at you today. I bless you guys. Until next time.